Hey everyone, and welcome to my walkthrough for Mount Ordeals Extreme. Before we get started with the fight, you'll want to take some spread positions. First of all, you can see the markers in front of you. They are going to be placed on these lines that you can see on the arena. Might not be that clear in the video, but it's very clear when you're in the fight itself. Essentially, you want one player on each line. We made it so that our tanks and healers are on the cardinals, and our DPS players are going to be on the intercardinals. Second thing that you want to do is take light party spreads as well, which is why we also have our 1 and 2 markers on our 2 healers. Basically, tank healer, 2 DPS in each group, and you are good to go. So, as with pretty much every fight in the game, it's going to be starting off with a raid-wide AoE, so you can already put up some mitigation before you start the fight. This one is called Inferno, and this one also has 2 variations. So Inferno is just going to be doing raid-wide AoE damage when his cape is closed, but when his cape is open, there's going to be the added effect that you also need to spread around, because everybody will get an individual AoE as well that applies a magic vuln, but that's only when his cape is open, so we'll come back to that when we get there. Then he is going to be scorching one half of the map and then putting some dials down, kind of like in normal mode. Follow the line to see where you end up. It's just going to be that we might have to follow 2 lines, and there's also going to be more rotations with these arrows. So in this case, we have one line coming from the middle. You always need to look at where the lines in the middle are. It's not highlighted like in normal mode, I believe. So this one is going to rotate once, so that means it is going to end up right in front of me on the north side. It's going to be following this squiggly line to C, and then we need to see what is on the C marker in terms of what we need to dodge. Now there are 2 symbols on the outside of the arena. You have the blue triangle, as you can see on the right here, and you have the red square that you can see on the left. Blue triangle is doing a triangle attack through the arena. The square is doing a square attack, but essentially it is going to be blocking off half of the arena from the square itself. And you can also use these blue lines to kind of like gauge where you need to stand. When it comes down to dodging these triangles, it's very easy. You just want to be standing next to them, on the line next to them, on the edge of the purple circle. So here, the 3 marker, I believe this would be safe. And then the 4 marker would also be safe if we are dodging the blue triangle on C. But that's not going to be the case, because we need to see what, of course, is going to end up on the C marker, which in this case is going to be the red square. So again, to just reiterate, this is the line that we're going to be following. The line is going to be rotating once, so it's going to follow the squiggly line to C, and then we have 1 rotation on the outside, which is going to be the red square that is going over. So we need to run away from that, because that is going to be, well, basically hitting that entire side of the arena. So we go opposite of the red square. You can see there is a lot of time for you to do this as well. And then the square hits that side of the arena. Then the second configuration is going to be a 90-degree angle on the 2 lines, and you'll always be going either towards where the angle is pointing or the other side of it. In this case, it is going to be the 2 reds that we need to dodge, which means that we need to go opposite of where the corner is. If it is going to be 2 blues that we need to be dodging, we need to go towards where it is pointing. So as you can see right here, it's going to be following these 2 lines, but this one has blue ones on the edge, and that is going to rotate once, which means it's going to end up with 2 red ones instead. And that is why we are standing on the opposite side of it. If this were to be 2 reds and the blue ones get rotated in, then we need to stand on the opposite side of the arena, again, on the edge of the purple circle if you want to keep melee uptime. But it's reds, so we go to the other side. And that is the end of the first dial mechanic. After this, we have our first tank buster. This one has a tiny bit of AoE on the tank buster as well, as you can see. Doesn't really do much damage at all. And there's also not that many tank busters, so you can just throw all your cooldowns at it, and you can kind of ignore it. Then we go into the mechanic for which we need our 2 light parties. As you can see, 1 party goes left, 1 party goes right. And then we have 2 random mechanics, and there's 3 random mechanics in total that they can choose from. So put up some mitigation, because this is going to do damage. First random mechanic that we get is a group share. This is going to be targeting your 2 healers. Then we get a cleave through the middle of the arena, just dodge this, heal up, mitigate again for the second random mechanic, which in this case is going to be 2 player stacks. So stack up, melee is close, ranged far. Middle for heals again, spread out to your clock positions. for cleaves on everyone. And then I'll do one more pass through this mechanic so that you can see what the third random iteration is as well. So this is the third mechanic that you can get with this. This is just individual AoEs. As you can see, they are very tiny, so you don't need to be too far away from each other. And as you can see, you can also get hit by the middle AoE, the cleave. It is very unlikely that you'll die to it if you have a little bit of mitigation. And then again, second random mechanic, go middle for heals, spread out for the cleaves. After this is done, make sure you come back middle for heals, because there is a second Inferno, so that is again going to be raid-wide damage. And then we have a lot of time where we have some downtime again, because we are going into the second dial mechanic. So again, he's just going to be scorching half of the map, and then he's going to be putting down his dials. So for this first one, we are going to be having two lines again from the middle, one on the left, one on the right. And you're going to have to follow again where these are going to dodge these triangles. This one all has triangles on the outside of the arena, so it's fairly easy to dodge. If this is going to be ending up in two straight lines, you just go across and stand on the one marker. But in this case, we have a squiggly line that is being rotated in. So the one on the left is going to stay straight, because this is a straight line. And then the one here on the right is going to be a squiggly line to the left, which means that the triangle on D and 1 are going to be firing. To dodge this, we are going towards the A marker or the 4 marker. Both are going to be safe spots. But I'm going to end up rotating to the A marker right here. So again, if you want to keep melee uptime, stand right behind this purple line. You're going to be just fine. Or you can do what the group is doing right here, stand in between the two triangles. That is also going to be a safe spot. So there's essentially 3 safe spots for this mechanic. And there go the triangles. Then for the second one, we're always going to be getting a straight line through the arena. As you can see, it's going from east to west. But the only thing we have to pay attention to here is the squiggly line that is being rotated in, which is going to be the one that is right next to me on the southeast. Now, the reason why you only need to pay attention to this is because you want to be on the side of the arena of the squiggly line, but opposite of where it is going. So because the squiggly line here is going towards the south, we are going to go north on that side of the arena. The reason for that is because the other side is going to get a straight line rotated in, and it is all red squares. So that side of the arena is going to be unsafe. And then basically the other side is going to be the squiggly line towards a red square. So we want to be away from where that fireball is going to go. So the squiggly line here is being rotated down, meaning that the ball is going to go north. So it's going to hit the one here on the 4 marker. So we are going to be safe over here. And it'll be much clearer when this thing actually rotates into place. So as you can see right here, this ball is going straight right. So the entire right side of the arena is not safe. The ball here on the left is following the line to the northwest, which is going to mean that the northwest side of the arena is unsafe, and then we are left with this tiny pizza slice that is going to be safe for us to stand in. So again, only pay attention to where the squiggly line is going, move to the same side and then the other side of the map for that. Then we go into the add phase. This one has a bunch of different adds, and each one of them has a different function. So the 2 adds on the northeast and the northwest will do a tank buster periodically that can be picked up with a tether. The 2 adds on the south side of the arena will randomly tether 2 players to do a cleave attack towards them, so you need to point that outside of the arena. The big add in the middle will periodically do a raid-wide AoE that also applies burns, so that one needs to die first. And then there's another add in the north, which you can't really see right now, but it's also there. You'll see it once the big one dies. That is spawning these puddles on the floor that you can see. How you want to kill them doesn't really matter, to be honest. Just make sure that the big one dies first. And you can see the tethers going out right here. Players are pointing them to the outside of the arena. So there they go and do their cleaves. We kill the one in the middle so we don't get any more raid-wide AoEs. These are the tank tethers, so both of your tanks pick them up. These do tiny bit of AoE, so make sure that you're not stacking on top of your tank. And then you basically just kill them. Nothing really much to it, just dodge the puddles on the floor. as long as the middle ant is alive. If one of the south ants is alive, make sure you point them outwards when they do their cleave. And if the ones on the northeast and northwest are still alive and they do their tank buster, also make sure that the tank picks it up and uses a cooldown while standing away from the group. Then at the end of the ad phase we get a big raid-wide AoE, so put up a fair amount of mitigation for this, and you can also start hitting the boss again. He becomes targetable immediately after the ads are dead. And then we go into the second half of the fight. So for this one we are once again going to be spreading out into our clock positions. And this is going to be roll based. Now you can also see that he's opening his cape here, so if we get another Inferno cast, we're going to need to spread out. So first thing that's going to happen is we are going to be getting debuffs. As I mentioned before, this is roll based, so I'll be zooming into the party list right here. You can see that all of our tanks and healers have a triangle or a flare marker. This means that they need to stay outside of this mechanic. And you can see that all of the DPS players only have one debuff, and the one that has two debuffs has a stack. Now this second debuff that everybody has is just going to be a spread marker. So you look at your left debuff to see if you need to go in immediately or stay out. And then the second debuff just means that everybody needs to be spread at the end of this mechanic. So because tanks and healers have the flare marker, that means that we need to stay outside of the arena. And that means that DPS need to be stacked in the middle. And I'll also be showing you this from the other point of view as well. So first you dodge the cleaves right here. If you need to go stack in the middle, you immediately move middle after this plus AoE goes out. If you need to stay out, you need to move into the plus on the outside of the arena so that you can dodge the second iteration of this attack, which happens right here, and then you can move in to dodge the outside explosion. And then you spread out to your position, but unfortunately enough our tank was out of position. And then that is basically just going to be the end of that mechanic. So I'm going to be showing it again, this time around from the stacking perspective. So in this case I am the one that has the group stack. So you stand middle, immediately run to the middle of the arena to stack with the rest of your group, and then spread out again to your spread positions. And then that is going to be the end of that mechanic. After this is done, we get Inferno. So again, that's the raid-wide AoE, but because his cape is open, everybody gets these individual tornadoes, which give you a magic vuln-up and also a bleed. So you really need to make sure that everybody's topped off and has some decent mitigation. Now, following this, we have a mechanic that has two different names. So either it has Scalding Signal or Scalding Ring. If it is Ring, that means you need to be in. If it is Signal, it means you need to be out. And you also need to be spread out for this mechanic because everybody is going to get an individual cleave, as you can see right here. Now, these cleaves, I guess you could call them, also spawn these after images on the outside of the arena, and they are going to be flying back inwards in the arena in the exact same configuration as these cleaves go out. So we basically have a bunch of tiny pizza slices that are going to be our safe spots for the next part of this mechanic. So part one is just spread out and be in if it's ring, be out if it is signal. And then the second part is everybody runs middle and also heal up. And then he is going to be facing one random side of the arena where he is going to be cleaving that side. So we only have the back side of the boss to work with. And then you need to look at his cape. If we have 3 tiny flowers, like we have right here, as you can see, 3 tiny flowers, it means everybody needs to be spread. If we have 1 big flower, that means everybody needs to be stacked together. So in this case, it is going to be a spread. So we have the 4 pizza slices on the back of the boss to work with. And I'll try and pause it right here. You can see I'm standing in one of the safe spots. There's 1 to the right of me, 1 to the left, and 1 further left. And you can see that the north side isn't really all that safe because the boss is cleaving towards that direction. Unfortunately enough, a lot of people are going to die here. This is probably the mechanic that you'll wipe to the most, if I'm being honest. But luckily enough, you almost have heal LB3 past this mechanic. So you can usually do that. And then this is the other version, as you can see, 1 big flower. So everybody needs to be stacked together for this. Unfortunately enough, we were not. You can see the stack going out right here, which ended up killing a few people. After that mechanic is done, we are going to be getting 2 tank busters on the main tank and also the second in aggro. These are very big cleaves. Usually what we did is we have one tank go to 1, one tank go to 2. The way how I did it in my group when we were progging this, we have one tank north, one tank south, and then the group stands east or west. However you do it works, just make sure you don't cleave people with this tank buster. Unfortunately enough, I didn't have enough HP to survive it because I am but a healer. After this we are going to have another dial mechanic, so you don't have to bother raising people here if half the party is dead. Just wait until you get heal LB. There is no reason to get people up immediately because there is no damage. And there's also basically nothing happening for a very long time. So he is spawning his dials once again. And there's number 3. And then we just go do the exact same thing that we've done before. So in this case the inner one is going to rotate once, the middle one is going to rotate once, and the outside is staying the same. So this line is going to the right, this coming to the left, so this means we're going to follow the squiggly line towards, I believe this is the A marker over here. So that is where we are going to go, and that is a triangle, which means 1 and 2 is going to be safe. So again, this one is rotating north, then this one is also rotating north, so that means that the squiggly line is going to end up on A. Again, it'll be much easier to see once it actually works out. So it is going to be rotating into place. And then as you can see, the fireball is just going to follow the line to the triangle, and then 1 and 2 would have been our 2 safe spots. And then we get ready for the second one. This is going to be a 2-liner again. So we have our 2 lines right here. We follow where they are going to go. So we have a squiggly line that is going to end up on D, and we have a straight line that will end up on C. So in other words, the one here on C is going to go straight. The one that is going towards D is going towards north instead, so the 4 marker. So we need to see what's there. So the 4 marker is a square, which means that this entire side of the arena is not safe. The one on C is a triangle, which means that 4 and 3 would be our safe spots. But because 4 is not safe, because there is a square there, we need to go to the 3 marker instead. So everybody is going to run to the left here. And then of course also stand slightly left of this line, because the red square is going to make this entire side unsafe, of course. So it is rotating into place, as you can see, straight to the triangle, squiggly line to the square, and then the triangle is going to make the entire left side unsafe, and then the square is going to go through the arena, which means we need to be on the 3 marker, which is going to be safe. And I guess you could have stood on the B marker as well, but might as well just stay close to it. Then we have another Inferno, so raid wide AoE, but because his cape is closed, it's just raid wide AoE and we do not need to be spread. And then we go into Limit Cut. This is the final mechanic of the fight. After this it's just a repeat of mechanics that you've already seen. And this Limit Cut has 2 attributes to it. So you of course have the Limit Cut itself, where he'll cleave 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and then 8. But together with that there will also be 2 tethers. Now these tethers will ideally be baited on the players 7 and 8, because these are going to be constantly giving that player a debuff. And if you get, I believe it is like 4 stacks or maybe 5 stacks, I'm not entirely sure. Essentially, if you get too many stacks, if you're holding the tether for too long, then it is going to be exploding and you're basically just going to die. So what we're going to do is we have players 7 and 8 pick up the 2 tethers and they stand ready next to the boss. Once players 1 and 2 take their cleaves, they're going to be taking the tethers from those players, and you just keep rotating in like that. So you take your cleave, then you take your tether. So over here you can see number 1 goes out, goes to take the tether, 2 goes out, goes to take the tether, 3 goes out, goes to take the tether, 4 goes out, takes the tether, 5 goes out, takes the tether, 6 goes out, takes the tether, 7, and then 8. 7 and 8 don't have to pick up the tether because there's enough time, but essentially that's basically what that is. After this we have another Inferno cast, which again, the cape is open, so everybody needs to be spread out, because we get these tornadoes as well. And then we go into the opposite mechanic that we had before. So before we had Scalding Signal, which was outside safe. This time we get Scalding Ring, which is going to be inside safe. And I'm not entirely sure if the second part of this mechanic is also the opposite. So if we had spread first, it's going to be stack next. And if you had stack first, it's spread next. Because I've never seen that mechanic, if I am being honest. But after this, we basically get this mechanic, so the second iteration of the stack or spread with the safe spots. And then we also have another dial mechanic where you have to go follow the lines, and then you have Enrage, if I am to believe my friends. So that's basically going to be the entire fight. There are also mechanics I can't show, because I've just never seen them in the 5 or 6 clears that I've had of the fight so far. Even with a very scuffed clear, you can probably kill it after the limit cut and you won't have to do this mechanic a second time. But otherwise, just do the mechanic a second time, do the dials again, just follow the lines, same principle as it was the 3 times before that, and then you should have plenty of time to kill him before he casts his Enrage. So, if there's any more questions about the fight, then feel free to leave a comment down below and I'll definitely get back to you. But for now, I want to thank you for watching, I want to thank my Patreons for their support, and I'll see you in the next one.